You're listening to Kelly and Steve, and this is Coupled with Chaos.
90 Day Fiancé, Season 10, Episode 11, For Richer or Poorer. I guess for poorer, it would be Rob.
For real.
I think he might have...
He would say the struggle is real.
Does he have a complex about...
Being poor?
Right.
Seems like it. I mean, in the preview at the end, he was real... I don't like your tone.
Yeah, he was.
With, you don't know what it's like to be at the bottom.
He doesn't say, and we'll talk about Rob more later, but he doesn't say that he has any obligations, right?
No.
It's not like Manuel, who is providing...
sending most of his money home.
Rob's just himself.
Yes.
This is going to sound bad, and
it
I don't
tells
want
me
to sound...
he's probably a poor manager of his money.
Well, and maybe his time, because I think, not that you have to work your whole life. I think that's maybe a falsehood, right?
But I was far younger than him, working 2 and 3 jobs to pay for a place to live and a car to drive.
It's him living in L.A., I think, is the problem. The cost of living
expensive.
Is so
but
crazy.
But the wages are comparable as well. You're not making minimum wage in L.A.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know. It's just something we probably can't speak about. What we can speak about is our first wedding. How about this? We get a wedding. Great. I think, unfortunately, what we get with this wedding is we probably get the end of Devin
Their
and
story.
Nick.
Yeah, that's sad because I really like them.
Hasn't it been refreshing to have a real couple?
Yes.
I've seen complaints about how boring they are.
But I like boring.
Isn't this...
We're boring.
We're boring. We are boring. But isn't this kind of what we're looking for?
Yes. This is like the beginning of 90 Day.
Would you rather have manufactured storylines?
I like that they're simple.
Like Rob and Sophie?
They're simple. They're...
Not in a bad way.
No. Simple like...
Us.
They don't need a lot. It's just... They just want to be together. Like us.
Put 2 people together... and kind of watch what happens.
They'll figure it out, just like we did.
I think you were most impressed. I haven't heard you like this about a wedding venue ever.
Oh, it was so beautiful.
It was
so pretty.
And not even like the wedding itself, but just the venue and the way that looked.
I said I wished I could have had something like that.
Like your tone.
That would be like a dream. And it wasn't because of fancy decorations. The things that struck me about it were when they stepped up to the window in front of that big picture window and there were all the trees outside, it made it feel like they were outside, but it brought the outside in. They still had the convenience of temperature control and no bugs and all that, but it felt like they were outside.
Right, no bugs.
Right.
We've seen bugs.
We've seen that.
That happens.
That does happen.
You have air conditioning. But trees.
It was lovely. The natural light, the sunlight trickling in. And then instead of like a traditional archway, they had the Japanese cherry blossom trees. And I thought that was so beautiful. It was just elegant. I would have loved something like that.
Well, I'm guessing
beautiful.
Devin's mom and dad, they dropped some cash for this.
I'm sure they did.
This is not probably a cheap venue.
Although probably not nearly as expensive as most of the weddings that we've seen on 90 Day.
Well, I don't know. A helicopter
people want
ride.
a whole lot of stuff.
That helicopter ride's probably...
Oh, that was probably, unless they knew somebody.
I'm assuming that's, $5 or $10,000.
Wow.
For on the helicopter
crazy.
ride.
Yeah, you asked me, would you do that? I said, heck no.
There was a time in our life when we would have done that,
yeah,
right?
but not now. I'm too close to the end of my life.
Yeah, I think my mission now...
Not risking my last little bit.
In our 50s, because we're there,
yeah.
My mission now is really
Don't
staying
get hurt.
alive.
Yeah.
It's making it to the next year. And to minimize things that keep me from possibly doing that.
Right. You start thinking more about day to day instead of
it would be the same
planning.
reason I wouldn't ride a motorcycle.
Uh-huh.
Maybe in my past.
Right. I used to think, I'd love to go skydiving. But I wouldn't do it now.
Yeah, I missed that. We saw that on Life After Lockup or Love After Lockup. It was right there at the transition.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which one that was. But it was like, you know what? I'm fine.
Right.
All right. Risky for me.
I'll watch somebody else do it now.
Yeah. is, maybe standing on the second to the last step on a ladder. That's risky for me. I'm not sure I'm doing that.
We even try not to do that kind of thing now. We try to be a little smarter.
You don't use ladders, evidently. Yeah. So whatever you're trying to stand on. Uh-huh. So I've been in a helicopter. So it was my time in Berlin when they were trying to get rid of me and your brother and passing us off wherever, that they volunteered me to be a casualty of war.
Oh, yeah.
For the medics.
For training.
And so for 2 days, what I did was I was a casualty, and the medics would come treat me. And
reel you in and out.
And then load me on a helicopter and then send me out. We would land again. So I probably did it 7 or 8 times, 7 or 8 helicopter rides in 2 days.
That's scary, being the one dangling.
There's only once where I simulated a back injury.
Oh, where you were on a flat. That's what I assumed you were doing.
So, sometimes it would be an arm. You would choose, right? You'd pull something out of a hat, and you were this, right?
Uh-huh.
And so it was the one time that I was a back injury, and they had me strapped to a board.
Yeah, that'd be scary because you have no
Then they strapped the board
control
to the bottom of the helicopter.
Yeah.
The problem is that at this point there were no doors on the helicopter. So if you can imagine banking a hard right turn while you're strapped to a board, strapped to a helicopter. So for that few minutes, you're going, you don't really think about it until you turn.
Yeah.
And you go, I didn't pay enough attention to them strapping this board. Is there something else I can hang on to? Because the door's open. And so, I mean, it would be like I think I noticed it being in like a dentist chair.
Uh-huh.
And I looked down and I noticed that, my fingernails are white because I'm clenching them, or I have this habit of crossing my feet.
Uh-huh.
And so I'll notice that like my bottom foot's asleep because I'm just, you're just stressed.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of that's a blur. That would have been, 1990, probably 93, the end of 93 or the beginning of 1994 in Berlin. But, I think my heart rate rises when I think about that. So I'm okay.
With not doing the helicopter.
Not being in a helicopter again.
I said I would only consider it if it was to fly over the Grand Canyon. But I think probably that time has passed for me too.
Right. I'm not sure how I would, but
just because that would be like a once in a lifetime view of something I've never seen.
I think for the first time, I think this whole relationship between Devin and Nick, I think there's some steady and some calmness to this. Mm-hmm. We see it from her parents.
Right.
He said, I had questions about this boy at first with the piggy thing.
Uh-huh.
I thought there was something wrong with him. But after the time they've been together, I think it's pretty easy to see.
Right. Does this person have real emotion for my daughter or not?
And we've seen Devin have, the wedding dress thing. I'm not sure that was a great judge of her.
Yeah, I think that was more about her mom and feeling like she was interfering.
I have a feeling Devin's relationship with her dad may be better than her mother.
Yeah, it does seem to be that way.
Mom may be a bit more controlling.
Uh-huh.
And this puts Devin on defensive.
Yes.
Like,
gives her anxiety.
I'm sure Mom makes a lot of suggestions to Devin.
Uh-huh.
Devin has had enough of that.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Dad seems to be the key to this. And it looks like Nick and Dad have bonded in a way. It does.
And, I said when she came out in her dress and he saw her walking up to him, I saw tears in his eyes. That touched me.
Well, and her dad said as much.
Uh-huh.
I like to hear that from you. You saw me emotional. It made you emotional.
He said that shows me you have a heart. I really have a heart for my daughter.
Yeah, I have comfort in that. And so I think, you notice those things. You see those things.
Yeah.
And so I think really, this is a real couple.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we lose what is probably the only real couple
that we look forward to seeing.
I get that they don't have drama. Devin has put out on social media that this is probably the last time you're going to see us until
really.
I think she probably knows how they've edited it together. And so this is and we've seen it before. I mean, this is like Julio and Kirsten. You know, we saw them early, and then we didn't see them for 4 months, I think, is what it seemed like. But what a venue this was.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Just simple and so elegant, like a fairyland.
Yeah. The dress turned out great.
It did.
The handbag for both of those.
Yes. They looked lovely together.
Look, and it was simple. What she really changed was the gold to white.
Yes, and it was nice. That was a good choice.
I would have thought some red. And I know maybe it's just more stereotypical of what I think it would be. I would expect some color in this.
Yeah, well, I told you, I think more often than not, that's what you get. And so I was surprised that
there was no color. That
she took issue with gold, because I think the alternative is they have brighter colors like hot pink and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I wasn't sure what she was going to end up with, but she seemed happy with it. And, they both looked genuinely happy. She had such a big, real, genuine smile, and so did he. I loved him dancing out of like he'd won. I won
it
her.
Seemed awkward, but
everybody did it behind him. It was
even
so
the old
sweet.
People followed behind him.
Yes, that was really sweet.
He seems like a fun guy.
Yeah,
and I think maybe Devin, because we only know her from what we see, so she may not be as free and open.
And that probably makes them a good match because they complement each other. She probably likes that. Just like I didn't do a lot of laughing. I had a lot of seriousness in my life. And when I met you, you made me laugh all the time. And it felt so good to laugh. And it was what drew me to you. So I can see how these two would be matched together.
He seems a bit more like that. And so you see where the piggy thing happened. And
yes.
And her hesitancy in, explaining to him that this is a problem. But I think I'm real happy with them.
Yeah,
right?
Me too.
I think the dress looked perfect. The venue looked perfect. I thought even them putting the rings on, you talked about that. It was a little struggle.
Yeah, it's awkward when you're putting someone else's ring on. Because when you put it on yourself, you extend your finger and then you relax your knuckle just as you're pushing it over the knuckle.
Like now,
it's hard to judge that for someone else.
Even taking my own ring off now, I think this ring's a little tighter now than it was.
Well, sure, because,
It happens day by day.
We're heavier than we were.
I don't like your tone.
But the spot where the ring is that never comes off is skinny.
Right.
And so it is hard to get them off.
I find I do take it off occasionally to play with it. Sometimes,
I never take it off.
Well, being an electrician, what I do have is that even though I manage projects now, the callus on that finger remains. The other ones, they have kind of softened. But there where that ring rubs, it's still there. And so occasionally I grab it and would pull it off. So I think I don't notice so much when my pants are tight. I do notice when my ring is tight. This lets me know maybe it's time.
The only time I've taken mine off is to clean it. Like after I, if I forget to take it off before I mix, hamburger or something, make a meatloaf, then it's got nooks and crannies.
That's good. You could save food for later.
And I'll take it off and clean it.
But, the two of them, they met in a dating app. I think he's talked about being a little surprised at kind of how they got together. And I don't know. I think it's rare that, it's just, we dated, I don't know, in elementary school or whatever. It just doesn't always work out that way. I think for us, it would be if we didn't have the unique way that we got together, you'd question how people met, but you never really know.
Right.
So I'm just really pleased, but sad that we don't see them anymore.
Yeah. That's too bad.
I think we ultimately like and would rather have
more couples like them.
Right. I get it's boring and it's not very funny, right? You can't
It's
really
sweet,
make
though.
fun of them. But
It leaves you with a good feeling.
yeah, I think that's what we want. I mean, it's a lot. I know there's a group of people that probably want to make fun of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, what are we all hoping for? Like it's
A happy ending.
It's a renewal of, I don't
Hope.
know, of hope, right?
Yeah.
That there are people out there for everybody.
Yeah.
And everybody, maybe except for Rob, deserves to be happy.
And you want to see people have a happy ending.
Right. Because, positive relationships and positive people in your life can have a huge impact when things turn left.
Yes.
And all of us, every single person here has a situation that turns left.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have that support system in place for you to be able to help you through that?
Yeah.
Or that you're there to help somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
Somehow that we all get through this.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have somebody to get through it together, I think that works better.
Right.
Because you end up sometimes with people like Clayton.
Oh, gosh. I could not believe the conversation he had.
Can we chalk this up to him and a lack of social interaction?
I don't know. Either that or he's just an a-hole.
Well, I mean, we saw the preview, right? And I guess the reason why we saw this is like a Housewives mid-season preview, because what we are not getting is for the next 2 weeks, we're not getting this show.
Right.
So maybe we had an extended still to come on this season.
To hold you over until it resumes post-holiday.
We got this Clayton with his demand of no strippers. I just wonder who was on the bus with her when this happened.
Who took her out?
Yeah, if you're alone, look, if you're alone with a stripper, I think this is different, right? If you've hired your own personal stripper at your house, I think,
and you're videoing his junk in your face.
Maybe that's the line, okay? So, but what he does with Cameron here and Cameron's girlfriend
is ridiculous.
Right. Do you think it's possible that production said, look, we need you to bring this up?
No, because I looked at the expression on his face when she very calmly told him that it was making her uncomfortable and that she needed to leave because it was too personal.
And
the expression on his face was he was trying to punish her. He was trying to make her
guilt her.
Feel so bad that she would give in.
I love watching the other person's face while the other person's talking. I'll rewind it and watch their expression.
And I was looking at the girlfriend of his friend, and she looked mortified. Like, what is this conversation? And how is this going to end?
It'd be like, I don't like this guy.
Yeah.
I would not want this to... They're having a trip together, right? And I can't help but, look, we're all a product of our own relationships and experiences. But you and I took a trip together before we were an item.
Yes.
Or maybe while we were becoming an item is what happened.
The trip was when it all happened. So
I think about this opportunity that he has away from his mother to really
get
build
to know her.
A foundation for how they're going to deal with things. But for me, it seems like he's just getting in her pants.
Yes. Right. For us, that trip was when we really got to know each other. It was a 7-hour drive each way. And we talked and listened to music and really connected.
I pretended to like The Cure.
Yeah. And then we were going to my sister's because I had a pre-planned vacation before I knew you were going to be tagging along, which I was mad about. And I was just hanging out at my sister's house, visiting with her and my niece and nephew. And we did lots of activities with the kids. And you and I went and walked in the park and sat on the bench and talked and held hands and sunbathed at my sister's house, rode bikes and just, hung out like normal people. Nothing exciting, no fancy vacation, nothing like that.
That should have been a bad sign for you about how boring I really am.
It was just everyday things. We just spent time together, quality time, talking, getting to know each other. We played cards. We had dinner with my sister every night. We went roller skating. It was normal stuff, and it was great. And that's when I fell in love with you.
I see this opportunity for them to have this time alone. Now, maybe driving from Kentucky to California is too far, right? So I understand that. But it's a trip. It's an opportunity that they have to really get to know each other.
Yeah.
Or start over again, right? Mm-hmm. And he takes it, and
it's all physical for him.
I think, even that, because it's kind of the same that we talked about before. Anna Lee and Clayton are different people. Anna Lee's a bit more social, a bit more outgoing. And already in her short time here, she's pushed him to meet somebody that he's never met in person before.
Right. And he was excited about it.
She has the opportunity, or he has the opportunity through her to kind of grow a little bit. But he takes this opportunity and just pulls this crap.
Yeah, that was baloney.
Yeah. I was kind of in shock if we didn't already have seen this. He says he'll have look, I get having a virgin drink because I don't drink alcohol. Stop there.
Right.
So you think he's trying to be funny?
No, because he looked at her with a mad face. I thought.
I took in my notes. I said, maybe he's trying to be funny.
He's trying to punish her.
Yeah.
By embarrassing her.
So then he doubles down. And when Cameron says, he tries to give him a way out, says, look, that look she's giving you, I don't like it. It's not a good look. I mean, not like from her.
You're in trouble,
You're in trouble. And this is what he says. I stopped it and rewound it. I said, did he really just say, what is she going to do? Not have sex with me?
Yeah.
We just stared at each other.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. And then they talk about she brings up the mom, and she really talks about the issue and says, look, we're with the mom.
It's not comfortable.
But he goes, that's proven wrong scientifically, because we spent some time in Indiana and nothing happened. You think the pressure that she's under? I can't imagine having, I don't know, like pressured intercourse.
Right.
And I know people have had to deal with this, so I'm sure it's a thing. I cannot imagine how uncomfortable that would be if, in fact, I don't know, you're being judged or you're being pressured into it. It would be horrible. And the thought that Clayton would do this to somebody.
Right, even if it was your spouse, if you're not on board.
I don't know. Happens. I know it happens, right?
I'm sure it does. But, you want that to be, we've talked about it, a moment of intimacy, of real connection, and not rushed. You know what I mean? Like, it's not about the act. If you get to the act, then great. If you don't, I feel like the leading up to it part is the best part. I mean, it can get even better, but it's the connection, the time together, just
I think that's
connecting.
What you want people to experience. And maybe if you can find a partner that you can experience that with. And I think those who have experienced that level of intimacy with the partner will understand.
Yeah, because I think without that, it's just the act. And
it's like,
I would think that as you got older, you would lose interest.
Ashley and Manuel or something like
wouldn't
that.
You? Wouldn't
I
you
would think so.
If you've been together forever, if it's just about the act, wouldn't you lose interest?
Did you watch? And look, we haven't talked. We don't, because I know your TV background isn't mine.
Right.
I grew up on television.
I didn't watch much television.
Maybe parenting wasn't a thing, but I grew up literally, I would just watched every show.
I did not. We had one television, and my dad controlled it, so I watched the news.
Did you ever watch?
And PBS.
You probably saw Married with Children, though. I mean, so you know the storyline.
I saw Married with Children after I was on my own.
Al Bundy and having sex with Peg, right?
Yeah.
It was like a chore, right? And so it would be like that, I would assume. This is like a chore.
Mm-hmm. I would think that you would lose interest then.
Right. But it's just this pressure. So ultimately, it's like a performance then. Could you imagine if this actually happens?
Yeah.
Now, what we do know is the two of them have done this before.
Mm-hmm.
And my guess would be Clayton may not be really good at this. Because they haven't reached some level of intimacy, obviously.
Right.
But now with more pressure, can you imagine the stress that this would be?
Yeah, it would make me the opposite. I would be looking for ways not to.
Well, and it looks like that's where she is.
Uh-huh.
She's like, I'm not, because ultimately you'd hope that this would be a fun experience.
It should be voluntary.
But now it's going to be, am I doing this right?
Mm-hmm.
What does he think, right? I mean, where does Clayton, even this conversation, where did he get in his brain that this is a normal conversation to have in front of people that, one, that you haven't been around.
Right.
But two, that you would put her in this position. What's he attempting to gain here?
Right. They don't even speak the same language.
She understands.
She understands, but they don't understand her. And think about the fact that she does understand, and they're talking like she's not there. Yeah,
and I think maybe, though, I've spent a lot of time around people without English as a first language. A lot. Years and years and years. A number of people. And what happens is most people that I've been around had years of English language schooling.
Uh-huh.
So many of them understand English.
Uh-huh.
But it's a confidence level to speak it.
Uh-huh.
It would be like me. Like, I'm surprised I never had any schooling in German, but the time I spent over there in Germany, what I can just hear it, right? And I understand, I would say at this point, even 30 years removed, I probably understand 25 to 30% of German when I hear it spoken, which is shocking. The trouble is I did have some Spanish training, and I get them blended together after all these years, which is really odd.
And now we live where everybody speaks Spanish.
Right, so it's a bit different. So I can so Annalie, I would assume, understands just about everything that is said. And so she's there. She gets this. It's just so insensitive of him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we've seen more insensitive things, but at this point I can't remember any.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I'd be wanting to leave if I were her. And she was so excited to get out of the apartment. And who wouldn't be?
Right.
I don't think these two are going to work.
But what we find in 90 days, everybody gets married.
I don't know.
That's how it works. Right? I went through the list.
Are you thinking Justin and Nikki are going to get married?
Well, that one's different because he's not here.
Mm. This
really shouldn't be a 90-day. This should have been a B90.
Yeah, why is that?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. But
I just can't understand. No, I get Cameron, and I'm sure Cameron and Clayton are friends. I don't want to discount internet friends versus real friends. I think in this era,
That's probably more common.
I don't think there's a big difference.
Uh-huh.
I think because of text messages and messaging and messenger and these things, I think the way people are involved in lives are different now than 20 years ago or 30 years ago. There aren't as many actual conversations that people have anymore.
Well, it's like, if all this technology had been around when my mom was around, then our kids would have had more of a relationship with my mom.
Right.
Over the distance, because they could have seen each other and had conversations and not just say hello on the phone.
Yeah. I think everything was set up for Ashley's mom to overreact to Manuel. And I think we were waiting for it.
Uh-huh.
And I think she really did an incredible job of getting through this initial first meeting alone and doing things right.
Yeah, I was on the fence a couple times.
I was waiting.
She was a little on the edge, but they seemed to navigate it okay. And I was glad that he didn't get frustrated or upset and get up and walk out.
She got to say, I'm watching you.
Uh-huh.
They had what could be.
I thought the tone was a little less friendly than it could have been.
Well, I think the app is a little tough, right? So I think your words are.
I mean, from her.
Well, I get it. I think, this is my daughter. I think she did know that no matter what she does, there's nothing that she's going to do that's going to change Ashley's mind in any way.
Uh-huh.
So you're going to go, this is happening.
Uh-huh.
So how do I stay involved in their lives and still say my piece? And she got to say, hey, I'm watching you.
Right.
Completely.
She did say she liked him after the conversation, so that was good.
Yeah, she didn't even get to see the fun Manuel that we all did. And because, they talk about him running.
Uh-huh.
But
he explained himself well.
Mm-hmm.
That it's to keep from arguing. He would rather go and be peaceful and not comment. And she's somebody who would stay and argue and fight for hours.
Well, we saw even like Rob.
Right.
Rob running and chasing her.
And you know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I do. I completely understand that. I understand. I don't like your tone. How about that? Mom is doubtful, but I think she has realistic expectations for all of this. Right?
Yeah.
I thought, and like Manuel did, I said, man, this deck is stacked.
Yeah, because she's heard everything from her daughter's side and not from his side. And I said that even before he said it.
Like, this isn't good.
Yeah.
I think what they need, and there's ways to do it through messenger apps and translations, and that the two of them would have some regular dialogue together. Would be nice. You send some pictures or whatever. Here's a picture of the dog.
Right.
Whatever it is, it's to have some normal communications where you can see personality.
Right.
Versus just getting
conflict
this
resolution
from Ashley,
yeah.
right? Because what really, I'm not saying we know Manuel, but what can Manuel deliver to this relationship? What do you believe he's capable of delivering?
Steady, hard work.
Right.
Reliability.
Right.
And evenness.
What is he not capable of delivering to this relationship as a person at this point?
Emotional support.
Right.
Because he's got a lot on his plate.
Right. He's not there.
Right.
And so I think he probably hasn't done a good job of explaining that. He may not understand it yet either.
Right.
We've talked about our issues all along and my inability to provide that kind of support. I mean, I feel like I'm a lot like Manuel.
Yes.
Yeah,
he's hyper-focused. I got a job to do. I'm going to do it and do it well. Not
a big chatter about
how I'm feeling.
About how we're feeling about a problem.
Right.
I'm more like that is, what do I need to do to fix this problem that we have?
Right. So even if there's an issue, like a problem to resolve, I would want to vocalize all my thoughts about it as I'm thinking. Like my initial reaction, and then as I start to process it, okay, I can deal with this. Like, I work through my anxiety initially about it aloud. You don't want the dialogue. You're don't have anxiety. It'll work out. But I got to talk my way through it.
Or I have the solution already. Is let's get to, can you get through this part of your vocalization and let's get to the end and fix this problem? What's your decision? Sometimes I don't even care a lot about what the decision is. Mm-hmm. I may not even agree with the decision. And that's fine. I need to talk through it, and you don't. So I'm not saying at all you're Ashley-like. We're similar, though, in resolving it quickly. I think we end it the same way, but our process getting there is different. And so I see a lot of me in Manuel. Uh-huh. I don't see a lot of you in Ashley. No. Other than you are vocal. Right, but I'm not aggressive. And you're very similar in that way. Like she gets kind of worked up about stuff. Wow, that preview of her. Yeah, that was I don't even know what it was about. Else. I just saw her. The crying. Screaming in the car. That was a lot. Her dress, though, I was really impressed. Yeah, that was so pretty. When these women make excellent dress selections, I go, you know what? That's good. That whole panel on the front of her dress. Yeah, that was pretty. I thought, and that comes as you saying that kind of generally comes as a unit? Yeah, because I had a friend who custom made my dress for me. So I picked a pattern at the fabric store. I picked the fabrics for the basic satin taffeta layering. Mm. And then I went to a specialty store that sold the pre-made decorated panel that goes down the front of your dress and on your sleeves. So instead of singular beads or something. Right. It's pre-made. And so you select the panel that you want and the overlay is what it is. Mm. And I selected them smaller ones for my sleeves and had cutouts. Remember, she cut it out and had it so you could see through the lace embellishment on the sleeves. And then there was like pearls stitched along the point that laid over the top of the hand. And so you can buy those already made, the embellishment panel. And then you put it on and you can, put it on top of the satin, or if you want it to be see-through, like on the sleeve, you stitch it on and then you cut out the fabric underneath so you can see through it. So that's how that's made. Were you not confident enough in your sewing skills at this point to do this yourself? I mean, we didn't have much time, and I was working full time, so I didn't really have. You had a husband to support. Yes, I did, actually. I didn't have the time to put into that. What you listeners can't see is the look on her face that I saw when she said this. And I get on her constantly about her marrying an unemployed veteran. Yes. Who was not yet. I was transitioned out of the military, but I had not begun to work yet. Yes. And she decided to marry me anyway. Yes. So maybe I bring that up because I think it was a bad idea on her part, and I think it was a poor decision to marry an unemployed person. I knew you were good for it. But yeah, thankful. So I didn't have the time to put into it because we did our own wedding planning, and we made all the bouquet and the boutonnieres and all that stuff. We made everything. On job interviews. I was doing these things during the same period. Because we paid for our own wedding, so we made everything. Bicycling to job interviews. Yes. In the summer. Yep. Late summer. Initially, you didn't even have a license in the U.S. because you just come from Germany. I still had my Michigan driver's license from 1988, 89. Yeah, and you had to get Virginia ID and stuff. I think I had 30 days or something to get that. So I really liked her dress. Yeah, that was nice. I mean, it looked like they hadn't tailored it yet. Right, because when you get them off the rack, they're loose to fit everybody. And then they pull up like stitches, like ribbon that's temporarily there in the back to see what it's going to look like. And then they, mark the sizing and then they tailor it to the person. I think as hard as the hardest stitch I've ever seen, or the hardest string I've ever seen, was this string that was holding the covering on Jasmine's bikini. Wow. It was working. That was really hard. I'm confused about what you can show on TV and what you can't. Because I would assume what we were seeing up top would be closer.
Worse than the thong?
Yeah, I would think. I'm thinking what back there would be so bad that you could blur that I haven't seen on broadcast television.
Uh-huh.
Is it that bad?
I guess.
Were they doing that for our benefit? Did she request that it be done? Maybe because there's still stitches or something back there. I don't know.
I think if she had stitches, she wouldn't be showing them.
But wow, that top.
Yeah, when she said, we can go to the grocery store in Panama like this, and nobody even gives it a second thought. We're used to it. I'm like, wow, okay.
I don't know that we have anybody from Panama, but I guess kind of update us on that, right? What you did miss, I want to let you know, because in the middle of this, our Sundays, we've talked about it before, our Sundays are a little hectic.
Uh-huh.
And so you're making dinner, and we got dogs, and ready for Monday, and there's still kids, and so you were in the other room getting lettuce. What you do is you have, these arrow gardens?
Yes.
So even in December in Texas, we can grow lettuce inside.
Yes.
So you were in the back room cutting lettuce for our burgers while Gino was rubbing Jasmine's butt. So you were missing all of that.
So I didn't miss anything. Is what
well, you missed that, right? He was all oiling her up.
Oh, gosh.
She once said I could get married here in the bikini. And I'm thinking, you know what? She probably should have just suggested that, because that way the money she spent
for the dress,
for the butt instead of the dress would have been better. Wow.
So what did you think of the preview of her telling him?
Oh, I don't know.
Out of guilt.
Look, I mean, we get it. I can't tell what's real and what's not.
What's with this, third proposal?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm confused.
I mean, I think what they have done is poor production planning on Gino and Jasmine. So they're at this point where, look, I think everybody's over them. Yeah. We know this isn't completely 100% close to real, right? Like her boobs. You know what her boobs look like?
Melons.
Well, like we have, not only do you have this arrow garden inside, but you do grow vegetables outside.
Yes.
And there's a time, right? So you're looking at tomatoes and you're out there and the sun's coming down on them and you go, well, what you want to pick them is you want to pick them just before the skin splits on them, right?
Yes.
And so Jasmine's breasts, to me,
looks like they're going to say, they look hard.
They look like a tomato maybe the day before it grows too big for the skin.
Yeah, they're like coconut shells. They look rigid.
It looks like I could take like a walnut and stick it in there and smack them together and crack the walnut in there is what would happen. You have a nutcracker in there completely.
Great.
There's probably a sick joke in there. But that's what it looks like, a tomato just before it splits. So
that's great.
I don't know what to make with them. I think there's not a lot to talk about because I don't know what's real and what's not, or maybe none of it's real. So
after the lipstick thing, I'm
I
losing
get
interest.
It. So we know that it's just too much Gino and Jasmine, and maybe we're done with that. So we are going to talk about Robert and Sophie, or Knob and Sophie, I think as he's better referred to, and Sam and Citra afterwards. We are covering kind of new stuff subscription-wise. 1,000-Pound Sisters. We're back on Life After Lockup. We've just concluded. If by chance you have watched like this season of Accused, Guilty, or Innocent.
Wow, it was great.
We have covered each one of those episodes separately. And so if you're on our Patreon, you can just go and grab Accused, Guilty, or Innocent, the season 5, I think is what it is.
Yeah.
And they're all there in order. This last episode of Colin and Lindsay
update
after the verdict was, I think in the true crime world, it just kind of blew up. People are still. I posted, if you don't know, and for our listeners, our subscribers, on our Facebook page, I sent the link to the court's ruling on the appeal that the prosecutors made. So that ruling is on. It's like a 9-page document. So that is there on our Facebook page.
Such a travesty.
Yeah, it's just amazing. This week we'll cover the end of Sister Wives, the Other Way Tell-All. I think I'll have the Other Way Tell-All subscription this week. We didn't have it subscription last week, and I can tell you the Other Way Tell-All, more listens than this episode. So that should tell you maybe they're missing the mark a little bit on this season of 90 Day Fiancé.
Yeah, just like we said.
The Other Way is killing it on listens. Other than that, we'll listen. The rest of these two couples will cover Behind the Wall.
Thank you for listening.
You can listen to the rest of this episode
by subscribing to our Coupled with Chaos channel on Apple,
by subscribing to our Patreon,
or by subscribing to our Supercast
for $3.99 a month,
where you can hear us talk about reality shows,
real life, and more on our podcasts,
covering shows airing on TLC, A&E, Bravo, and the WE Network.
Just follow the instructions in the show notes.
Tell your friends about this podcast.
And rate and review us on your favorite podcast player.
Follow us at Coupled with Chaos on all the socials.
Or contact us directly by email at coupledwithchaos@gmail.com.